Fans Beyond Wrestling, this is Denver, Colorado, the man, not the place. Thank you for joining us for Positive Contact. Today's guest, Christian Casanova. And real quick, just want to make sure that everybody knows that this is being presented by IWTV.live, Independent Wrestling TV. Basically, the entire Beyond Wrestling catalog dating back to 2013. We're going to get some of those secret shows and studio tapings up as well, making sure that we've got streaming content pretty much from 1 o'clock in the afternoon until about 11 o'clock at night. And obviously catalogs for other organizations such as AIW, Black Label Pro, some classic Smart Mark video shows. So if you don't already, please sign up. Use promo code BEYOND. It'll get you a free trial and just hundreds and hundreds of hours of the best independent wrestling. So we definitely appreciate the support. And I'm going to throw it over to my guest, Christian Casanova. What can fans do to support you right now?
Right now, I still do have some Culture Season towels, and then I have some hoodies left and some beanies left. So if you shoot me a DM, I'll be shipping those out as soon as possible. And then I do have a couple shirts. But just check with me and see what you're looking for, and I'll let you know if I have it.
Cool. Best way to hit you up is going to be on Twitter?
Twitter, Instagram same as Twitter. It's going to be Kill4Nova, and then on Facebook at Christian Casanova.
Excellent. So, Christian, how old are you?
25.
25. So you're still pretty young in the scheme of things. When did you start training to be a professional wrestler?
I started training at 19. I went to the fantasy camp at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy as like a one-time thing. And after that, I just started training regularly on the Tuesdays and the Thursdays. One of my buddies said, he's like, "Hey, come try out at the fantasy camp that I'm going to." I wasn't even going to go. I had like 2 months to prepare for it. I prepared for it, and then I went, and Johnny Vegas told me, he said, "I think you got potential." And I talked to Fury after that, and then I signed up, and I never stopped 6 years ago.
Were you always a fan of wrestling growing up?
Always, yeah, always. I always wanted to be a pro wrestler. It just seemed so unattainable. It just seemed like something that was just bigger than me. And of course, like growing up, like I wasn't a very big kid, so I just, it just didn't seem like something that, actually could become a reality.
Did you play any sports growing up, kind of hoping that it would help you parlay into becoming a pro wrestler?
Yeah, I did. I did football, I did baseball, I did basketball, and I also did amateur wrestling. We were wrestling in the backyard, just like most kids do. And one of the guys that lived on the street was a wrestling coach at the local high school. And I remember he came by and was like, "Oh, like, what are you guys doing?" He's like, "You guys want to learn how to do it like for real?" So he actually brought us over to the high school to train with, and I was like 8 years old.
Oh,
He
wow.
brought us over to the high. Yeah, he brought us over to the high school to train with like the high school guys, and it was a group of 3 of us, and he ended up getting us in like junior competition tournaments. So when I was 9 years old, I was competing in tournaments. I placed second in Bay State League out in Massachusetts. I think it was like 85 pounds. It wasn't even 100 pounds yet. And I continued that all up until high school. And then once I got into high school, I just kind of, my passion changed a little bit. I was more interested in other things. So.
Sure. Who were some of your influences as far as favorite wrestlers growing up, and did that end up influencing your wrestling style?
Mm-hmm. I loved Edge. So when I started watching wrestling, it was through the Ruthless Aggression era. I started watching SmackDown because I didn't know about Raw. I mean, I'd always seen wrestling when I was a kid because, especially during like the early 2000s and the late 90s, it was always on and it was very popular at that time. But I started watching religiously through the Ruthless Aggression era. So Eddie Guerrero, Edge, Mysterio, Benoit, Angle, even Cena, like all those guys, Undertaker, those were the guys that I was looking up to, and molding my style eventually with like Edge, Guerrero, RVD, and even Mysterio.
It's just so funny to me because I feel like the generation that you grow up is probably your favorite wrestling. So I wonder if there's people that are growing up now and that are like, "Oh my God, can you believe how awesome like Andrade is?" And Aleister Black and Ricochet, like this is the best wrestling ever. Not a knock on those guys. It's just
right.
When you're living in the moment, it never comes across as classic. So it's just funny when, I get to talk with some of the younger wrestlers, because I'm going to be 35 this year, a decade younger, where I remember that wrestling and there's components of it that I like, but I don't remember anything from like the SmackDown 6 era. being particularly classic. And then you go back and watch, like you said, the Ruthless Aggression series, and you kind of say, like, okay, there was some pretty good stuff going on, and you wonder how it stacks up to today's wrestling as well. If, you know, people that are just growing up right now, 10 years from now, if they're going to look back on it the same way.
Right. Yeah.
Do you still watch wrestling now actively?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I don't watch Raw and SmackDown, religiously or anything, but you got to keep an ear to what's going on, of course.
What do you like? What do you keep up with?
I mean, obviously, I keep up with like NXT, like the things that where I'm directly, working towards getting to. I mean, the stuff that's on TV, I understand like the Raw and the SmackDown. I understand what it is now. When I was even a year or two ago, I was like, oh man, these guys are doing this like a cartoon crap. But like, I get it. I understand what it is. Like, I understand that it's the entertainment and it's more for the casual viewer and not so much for the people that are going to come back each time. So I just get it now. But obviously like AEW and stuff, because a lot of my friends are over there, and they see the same thing.
When you were doing backyard wrestling, what did you guys wrestle on? Did you have like a ring? Did you just throw like a mattress on the ground? Was it a
Yeah,
trampoline?
it was like an evolution. So it was like we started out with we had one little red mat, and I think it was like a gymnastics mat, and it wasn't even ours. It was like somebody that lived down the street that allowed us to use it. We started using that, and then I remember we took sticks, like posts, and we posted. Obviously, we did the four. We had like trying to think of what it was. I'm trying to remember. It was like how like clothesline, like where you hang your clothes.
Yeah.
Those were the ropes. But I remember like throughout, the evolution of it, we had like bungee cords, and you know how you have to gimmick hit the ropes. Like you can't really hit the ropes. You know what I mean?
Right. It's more for looks than it is for function.
Yeah, yeah. And man, it was so cool. Like sometimes it's crazy. Sometimes now when getting ready to go to the ring, I think about the times when I was like getting ready to go to the ring in my backyard, and I'm like, wow, I just remember like this is all a dream, like it sounds so corny and so cliche, but this is all a dream, and like now this is really happening. I'm really doing this. But yeah, so yeah, started with that little red mat, and then we ended up with the mattress, and then when it rains and shit, it's so gross. You can't really maintain that. And then I never got like a ring or anything, but man, if I did.
Did anybody that you did backyard wrestling with, did any of them ever end up training to be pros? Did anybody end up making it?
No, one kid that we did do it with went to train with. Remember how Brutal Bob, he was doing his training? I think I'm trying to remember what it was. Slam Tech, I think maybe.
Slam Tech, yeah.
Yeah, one of the kids that was wrestling with us, he was like 16. Went to train with Bob at the Slam Tech thing. I don't know how long. I think he might have had an indie show. Back then, we thought it was a huge deal. We're thinking, wow, this kid was on a real show. He came back. He showed us some like a headlock. He might have showed us like a quick little sequence or something like that. But then come to find out, he didn't know shit. But like you think like, oh wow, he wrestled in a real ring. This guy must know what he's doing. But yeah, only one kid. That's it.
That's similar to my experience when we
Yeah.
went to Vinny Marseglia's house and he had a ring set up, and it's like,
He trained you? Well,
oh, no.
Yeah,
Just one time. It was just like, oh, like what we're doing is like with mattresses and tires with wood over it. So like if he has a legit ring, this must be legit wrestling, not knowing any better,
dude, I would.
Because who would have access to a real ring? And
yeah.
It's funny though. Now, do you keep in touch with anybody that you used to do backyard wrestling with? And are they like wicked pumped that you're a pro wrestler now?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the people that I keep in touch with kind of knew they at that age. I just had like a crazy passion for this, just like so many of us. Like it's not just like oh, I woke up one morning and decided I'm going to be a pro wrestler. Like this is like a passion for a lot of people, and it's a dream that we're fulfilling like at the moment too. So a lot of my friends are just like, wow, man, I knew you were going to do it.
And when you started training to be a professional, was your family supportive?
No, because I feel like it was like it is a dream, and it is something that it just seems so, like I said, like it seems so unattainable because you see the guys on TV, and if you don't look like those guys on TV. I mean, while I'm a kid, so I'm 19 years old, I'm probably going through that phase where it's like, oh, I'm gonna try this, I want to try this, I want to try it. I still have people today like, hey, you still doing that wrestling shit? Like, you still doing that? Like, like as if it was gonna be like a little hobby.
Yeah, I know how that goes. No, I mean, I've been lucky. I've been lucky in mine because it got to a point where we would do the backyard wrestling shows at my house. My family was always cool about it, and they've always been supportive. and at least they've been hands-on enough to be able to see how it's grown over the years. But then it's like sometimes, like, you know, somebody from high school hits you up and it's like, hey, what are you up to? And it's like, you're not trying to brag, but it's like, oh, we have over 2 million subscribers on our YouTube channel.
Right.
And it's kind of like, wait, what? Like, that becomes something where it's almost more tangible outside of the world of wrestling, that people kind of understand the full scope of what wrestling is capable of.
Absolutely.
Let me switch gears a little bit, getting back to the start of your training. Now, I remember when you first did Beyond Wrestling, I think it was like a Team New England Pro Wrestling Academy against maybe a team of like some of the kids that trained with Biff Busick. And when you were doing the Christian Casanova persona, it was more influenced by Michael Jackson.
Right, yeah.
Did you come up with that?
So it was one of those things back when, you know, you're a new guy and you need to come up with some sort of character or some sort of, I guess, gimmick or just something to do. Just a persona in a way. That's really what it was. Like, I loved Michael Jackson when I was a kid, and who doesn't? And I still love Michael Jackson to this day. And I think I had done like a moonwalk or something goofy. And I remember Fury was like, oh yeah, you got to do more of that. You got to do more of that. And he was the one who ended up trying to get me to stop, to do less of it. After a while, I was overdoing it. You know, I did a Ring of Honor camp, and they had told me, they're like, we'll never put that on TV. And that like crushed my hopes and my dreams. And mind you, I was probably not even a year in the business. And I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to be. But yeah, so I guess like I did come up with that, but I don't know if I lost you for a second.
So one of the things that I always find interesting is, like, you know, a lot of times guys will start out and they kind of throw themselves headfirst into a character, as you just described it.
Right.
And then the more comfortable that they get in their own skin, there's certain attributes that they borrow from it. But to borrow the cliche, you know, it becomes more of who they actually are turned up to 11. So they're amplifying some of the attributes that people can relate to. So you end up going from like a character to something that's more of a persona, something that becomes more relatable. And I definitely will say that when you became less Michael Jackson and more Christian Casanova, that to me, as a promoter looking to book new talent, was certainly more appealing. But I also understand when you're starting out on the smaller shows, you have to have something that people can latch onto instantly, especially when you're working some of what's a nice way to put it, like the introduction to the indie promotions, where you're maybe not getting paid, maybe you don't even have the best opponents to work with, but it's just a matter of getting in front of the crowd and getting the repetitions. Something like that can be easy, so then you don't have to focus on the guesswork of, like, you know, should I taunt at this time? You know, what do I take my time here? They're with it because everybody knows Michael Jackson, so you're the Michael Jackson wrestler. So you get to focus on some of the other components of the performance. And then when you become more comfortable, when the moves become second nature, because that's one thing I got to say is you have unbelievable execution for a lot of your maneuvers. You know, being a great athlete, I'm sure helps as well. But am I right in making that assumption? Does some of that become second nature so that you can focus on other parts of the performance now?
Dude, that's spot on. Honestly, I didn't even look at it like that. I think that's what it was when I was starting. I just needed something for people to, I always say, like, I just need to get my feet wet. You know, I just need to get my feet wet and something that people, you know, give people a reason to care about me and something to, you know, hold on to as an identity, because I didn't know who I was at 19 or 20 or 21.
How long from the time that you started training until you had your first match?
I think it was like 6 months.
Oh, wow.
6 or 7 months. Yeah. I broke my hand. And within that 6 months, I think I was in the cast for like a month and a half. I got out the cast. I went to training the same day I got out the cast.
So were you still going to training with your broken hand to at least watch and stuff? Or,
oh yeah, dude, I was hella dedicated. I still am, but like I was very, very dedicated, and this was all I was gonna do at that point.
Who are some of the people that were more hands-on with the actual training itself at New England Pro Wrestling Academy?
Yeah, Brian Fury was there all the time, of course. Dijak was there all the time. Mikey Webb was there all the time. Todd Hanson was there. Every now and then, Tommaso would be there. Taven would be there. I think of some more guys that coming up. It was a good crew. Malonis was there. Like, it was a really good crew when I was coming up. Very, very competitive too. I mean, it's still pretty competitive now, but just like it was very competitive when I was coming up.
Did you ever train at any other schools, or have you, at least, I know you said you did the Ring of Honor camp. Was there any other kind of poignant learning experiences along the way?
No, I feel like I learned the most once I got, learn the footwork and the easy. Well, no, I won't say the easy stuff, but learn the footwork and the beginner stuff at the school once I started having matches. So I'd like credit my opponents for training me. You know, so many guys that I'm even still today, bro. Like I'm telling you, I'm learning still with these guys.
Did you ever have a match and have that eureka moment, either during it or after it?
There's a couple matches like that. I just can't think of like one in particular. It's every couple matches, honestly. I'm like, wow.
Sure.
When I worked silver, that match when I worked silver, that was a huge eureka moment. I look at who I was before that match, and then I look at who I am now, and I feel like I was completely different even before that. Any of the stuff I did before that match, I'm like, wow, like I didn't get that. I didn't get that. But now it's like so many little things that I get and understand now that I didn't get. Same with a lot of opponents, like from before that too.
So it looks looking at old cagematch.net. That's a reliable resource to me. I recommend it to
They
anybody
don't give
that's
me any
listening.
credit. They don't give me credit for some of the matches I've had. They
Well,
shorten
I
them.
mean, it's not exhaustive, but
Right,
I
right.
think that the majority of the top promotions,
Yeah,
it lists results for. And to the best of my
yeah.
knowledge, you can correct me if I'm wrong or if the website's wrong. It looks like the first match you did for Beyond Wrestling, it says Christian Casanova, Brick Stone, and Kevin Koo against Two Buff Ace Romero and
Yeah.
Xavier Bell. That was at Beyond Wrestling Dojo Wars NE, and that was
Chop
when
chop.
we were trying to introduce a concept, right, at the Chop Shop, trying to
Yeah.
introduce a concept, I believe, of 5 matches for $5 to try and
Yes.
focus on some of the best up and coming wrestlers in the area. It was kind of towards the conclusion of the Biff camp, and I think that one of the things that we realized was Biff put together this really aggressive camp that was kind of styled after what he had learned from Lance Storm. So it was 4 nights a week for I think 3 or 4 months. Um, and while it accelerated the learning process for a lot of the students, not all of them were ready to graduate to a Beyond Wrestling live event when we were doing our shows at Fet Music at that time. So we introduced this idea, kind of borrowing from CZW at the time, of a Dojo Wars. And again, focusing not only on the wrestlers that came through Biff's camp, but also some of the other up and coming wrestlers. So this would have been January 23rd, 2015. How long had you been wrestling at that point,
A year.
including
Yeah.
training?
Including training, a little bit over a year. Yeah, 2015. Because I had my first match in April. So
Of
April
2014.
24th. Yeah. So it was like probably about a year. I don't even. Yeah. Was that even a year? Full year? Yeah. It was about a year. I knew I had because I remember the gear that I had, and I knew I was like having matches.
Do you have? I have no recollection of it whatsoever. How did you get on the show?
Oh. Oh wait. Is this how? I think I got. So I was. Do you remember Flip Gordon was supposed to be on the show, and I think he was supposed to work John Silver. So Flip and I actually were in Pennsylvania the night before. I remember that like vividly because we drove back that night and we got back at 7 in the morning and call time was 11. I was like, fuck. But I needed it. Like this is, beyond at that time and I'm not even a year in. I know Flip Gordon had to pull off because he was hurt. I think he was supposed to work John Silver. And then I think I ended up getting in his place. That's how I believe because I do remember he was supposed to be there, but he wasn't. And then I think I took his spot. So I think that's how it happened. And I think
So,
you messaged me. I think you might have messaged me that night, like late, like,
so
hey,
somebody would have somebody else on the show would have went to bat for you at that point, which would have been like, "Hey, I know you got a spot open. This guy's good. Give him a shot."
I would hope so. Yeah.
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 I mean, honestly, that's people always ask like how to get Beyond Wrestling. Like I get inundated with messages all the time. I really
Oh, I'm
just,
sure.
if I've never heard of you, I just don't see the value in working with you. Like I know that
Yeah.
might be kind of a closed-minded take, but based on where we are at this point, like if you've got somebody on the roster going to bat for you, that's definitely a fast track. Um, so back in 2015, had you heard of Beyond Wrestling? Was it a goal to get to Beyond Wrestling?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember going to a Fett show and just thinking that, wow, these guys are on like such a higher level. Like it made me realize like there's levels to this shit. Like this freaking these guys are good. Like seeing Biff, and I mean I remember even like Amazing Red was on that show, and even Fury at that time was doing a lot of stuff at Fett. And just him being my trainer, I just remember. And Dijak was doing a lot of shit at Fett. Like him and Gresham were having had that match that one time. That was one of my first times there. And I was just looking, I'm like, wow, I'm just like, damn, I got to get here. Obviously, it just seemed so far fetched because it was like, I have so much more work to do, just like my look. That was part of the reason why I wanted to get rid of the Michael Jackson gimmick because I wanted to be a legitimate competitor. I didn't want to be a hokey pokey gimmick who does a fucking dance off every single opening of the match. Like I wanted to get down and wrestle with the best wrestlers in the world, really.
So I want to take this time and take a quick break. I just want to mention
Yeah.
that, all of the Dojo Wars NE shows are going to be getting added to IWTV.live.
Wow.
The aforementioned show with Dijak versus Jonathan Gresham, and then Amazing Red. That was, I believe, an event called Gratitude Era. That's an event that's up there. So, a lot of the matches that we're talking about, if people want to go back, IWTV is pretty intuitive. You just search the name of the wrestlers, the show should be able to come up, or you can search by show name. And just a reminder again, it's independentwrestling.tv or IWTV.live take you to the same place. And if you use promo code BEYOND, you get a little free trial, and hopefully you'll stay on as a paid subscriber, especially given everything that's going on right now. But let's get back to kind of your career in Beyond Wrestling. I see back-to-back days, or I should say right here, Beyond Wrestling Insatiable. That was the first event we ever did at Electric Haze. That was November of 2016. And it looks like it was maybe a New England Wrestling Academy showcase. It was you, Ilya, Mikey Webb, Scotty Slade against AG, Brick Stone, Cam Zagami, and Davian. So, fast forward in about a year and a half at this point. Do you have any memories from that day, wrestling at Electric Haze for the first time?
Yeah, I do. I just felt like I was like, damn, I'm sick and tired of being in these New England showcase matches. I want to be like my own guy so bad. But I was just happy to be, in a match at that point. And it was everybody I knew. But I do remember that was my goal. Like even going into that first one, I was like, all right, let me figure out how to be my own guy here.
I totally get that perspective, especially looking like some of the other matches, like the Hoods and Anthony Stone against AG, Cam, Christian Casanova, AG, Brick, Cam, Casanova, Crusade for Change versus AG, Brick, Zagami, Casanova.
Yeah.
So I definitely get it. I'm just going to give you my perspective on that, is especially before we started up with Uncharted Territory. And it kind of goes back to, a similar mindset that I have about a lot of things, but it's getting that repetition, it's getting that name out there without necessarily being thrown in the deep end right away. It'll give you enough time to get repetitions in front of a crowd that by the time you get a shot as a singles person, the fans will be more accepting of, oh, okay, I've seen this guy a few times. If you come to those showcase matches like that and play your greatest hits, it gives you more of an opportunity when you get those big singles opportunities to flesh it out. So, it is interesting here from the wrestler's perspective how it can be frustrating because you feel like you're being lumped in either as a student or under the umbrella of one organization. But you do have a chance to stand out in matches like that, I think, if you can outperform your teammates and even your opponents. One of the big matches that I'm looking at right here was Scarlett and Graves and Ohio is for Killers against Christian Casanova, Ilya Markopoulos, Mikey Webb, Scotty Slade. That was at Arts at the Armory in Somerville, and that was a few months after our debut event at Electric Haze. Did it still feel like more of the same? Like, hey, I'm just in one of these showcase matches, or working with wrestlers of those caliber, did it feel like a bigger opportunity at that point?
It definitely felt like an opportunity. And I remember that match, actually. Like, I think we went in with those guys, like, just, because that's what those guys are doing back then. It's obviously still today, but, like.
That's all those guys do, period. They only have one gear, full steam ahead.
That taught me some shit, though. Like, that taught me some shit. Like, it taught me a certain way to structure a match, because really, like, think about it, right? Like, 2016, like, the style was changing a little bit. And to what it is today, and it's still like changed a lot since too. But I remember at that point, like that indie style was really becoming hot, like where it was fireworks, boom, 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 boom. So something was happening all the time. So I actually learned a lot in that match with those guys.
Do you feel comfortable doing that style? Do you prefer that style?
I like to think now I'm comfortable with whatever I need to do. But back then, no, hell no, dude. I was taught lock up, take the head, take the arm, like that was like the New England Pro Wrestling Academy basics. Like that's all we knew, because at that time, Fury wasn't teaching us moves and fucking, like all different types of sequences and shit like that. That was for us to go learn on our own.
It's funny though, because when you talk about some of the trainers that you had, and I know that like when we worked with Fury, when we worked with Dijak, when we had Hanson, and they obviously had a very sound knowledge of the fundamentals of professional wrestling, but they were still having matches that were outside of the box, that were innovative, that were creative. And to me, that was always something that was impressive. Even going all the way back to when we did our first ever taping at the New England Wrestling Academy, that would have been, in conjunction with the first ever tournament for tomorrow. And I think Fury might have wrestled Julian Starr. This was probably before you even started training. And it was just like, wow, everything's so clean. And it enhances the performance overall. But then it's like when it's clean and then it gets creative. I mean, those are the best matches as far as I'm concerned.
And it makes sense too with Fury.
Exactly.
You know, everything's like very, particular in how he does that. And I was always impressed with those guys, just how much it made sense in the story of the moves and the sequences.
Sure, absolutely. Fast forward a little bit more. Looks like May 26, 2018, another New England Mania card. AG, I know, was really pushing to do a singles match with you. He had just reinvented himself with the retro character, introducing the Platinum Honeys. Probably hot as hell that day at the Varna Memorial Armory.
Yeah, it was,
a match that we've got up for free on YouTube. But did this feel like another level up for you?
Big jump. Big jump. I knew it. Once I got that singles match, and I knew I was going to have a killer match with AG. Like him and I have worked so many times. But that was where I was like, you know what? Like they're not going to miss me now. Like here I am with a whole new character and just like a whole new moveset and just like my style. I felt very confident in myself at that time and what I was doing. And again, like working with somebody like AG, it's like, he can do no wrong. So it's like with him and our chemistry, it's like, I think we had a great match. I think it took another year, I think, to get me in. But I knew that was like, that's where you were going to see me and be like, all right, yeah, he's got it.
When did you start to incorporate kind of the Killanova character, the culture season? Because I think that seemed to have already been established before you came back for the Discovery Gauntlet. So was that between those two periods?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit before. As soon as I dropped the Michael Jackson gimmick, we started doing like a heel gimmick at Chaotic, and then Triplicious, Trigger the OG. He was with me as my manager. And then I was just kind of doing like a brash, young, cocky asshole as a heel, flashy with the sunglasses and the gold chain. And eventually over time, it started to, put my real personality in it. It wasn't so much just like a persona. It was more something that I was doing. And then we had the crew with my boy Royce Bishop, and then we had Tasha Steeles, and then it became Culture Season within this last year.
One of the things that I always think is really cool about Chaotic, I mean, obviously before everything went down with the pandemic, was the regularity of the schedule. Every 3 weeks there's a Chaotic show, and it's in different markets and slightly different audiences.
Right.
And as far as being able to go train at a wrestling school and then have an organization like that to graduate to, where you're getting that regularity, but you're also getting pushed to try and seek your own bookings and kind of grow outside of the confines of the school and the promotion. But I always thought that the schedule that Chaotic ran was really conducive to growing as a professional wrestler. Were there any promotions that you were pushed towards during that period, or maybe smaller goals that you were able to achieve, or was it just take bookings where you can?
Yeah, it was definitely take bookings wherever I can. For the longest time, I was just trying to prove myself at Chaotic. Once I finally felt like I had a spot, I was like, okay, now's when I'm gonna learn how to do promos, how to do live promos, and just learn how to work in front of a crowd as a heel. I feel like I became a better overall performer just being at Chaotic and working in front of those type of crowds, and just cutting promos, live promos. They gave me so many opportunities to better myself. But yeah, as far as like bookings go, I was trying to take any booking I could take at that time.
And you had probably gotten your foot in the door with Limitless prior to coming back for the Discovery Gauntlet as well. You had probably been with Limitless for a significant period of time. What are some of your bigger matches at Limitless?
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing, dude. Like when I started, I was doing the Michael Jackson thing at Limitless. I was on the very first show. And then I was teaming with Brick Maston for a little bit. And we actually worked EFYBO. We had some good freaking matches, dude. Like I wasn't where I, should have been or could have been, obviously, but like we had good opponents. I'll say that we had good opponents. And I don't think he was feeling the Michael Jackson thing. I don't blame him. Then he brought me back as Killanova, and he put me with Stokely, which fucking, dude, Stokely's the man. And that really, like, man, he taught me a lot, and it just gave me so much confidence as a heel. But my first match was against Ethan Page. that first night back. And then ever since, Randy's been taking care of me, man. Like he's given me a lot of high profile matches and really challenged me.
Yeah, I like Randy. I like Limitless a lot. It's funny because there's been people over the years that always ask me like, "What's the secret?" And I explained to them like it's not really a secret. Like it's just a matter of like repetitions. It's a matter of consistency. You have to stick to it. And Randy's like one of the few people that actually kind of took that advice, took it to heart, and then actually moved forward with it to be able to grow Limitless to where it is right now. And I mean, obviously, again, before all this went down, switching over to a monthly format, same building, focusing a little bit more on building stories. But again, even the success that he's had with his YouTube channel. We'll get back to Stokely in a minute, but I think one of the matches you have on his YouTube channel against Chris Statlander has like 40+ million views.
Yeah.
Is that one of those things where you're in different locker rooms and stuff like that just because of the amount of times that it pops up on YouTube? People are like, hey, I've seen that match. Well, no, it's just one of those things where it gets a lot of hits and it's just a completely separate circle than what most wrestling fans see.
It was a thumbnail. It was a great match, actually. It was a nice little like 6-7 minute match. But through that thumbnail, like me with my arm up, in between her legs and then my hand on her, that's all it takes, bro.
I mean, but yeah, I know and I don't know, because if I knew, you know what I mean? Like you would, you know what I mean? You would put it together specifically for that purpose, just to make a little extra money. I wish it was that easy. Did you like working with Statlander?
Oh yeah, of course, super easy. And it was actually, I was supposed to work the Hurricane, and then I guess something happened with WWE pulling him, and then he put me and Chris like together, like with that day. Actually, it was that day, and then and she's so easy, she's so good, and especially with intergender, like she knows what she's doing.
So getting back to Stokely,
yeah.
Stokely went hard lobbying for you to get a spot in Beyond, even after he stopped working with you. And here's my perspective on it: is very rarely is there a point where Beyond Wrestling is at a shortage of working with good wrestlers. So then I have to look at what is my point of differentiation? What is it that's going to make somebody come to a Beyond Wrestling show than a number of any of the other shows in the area? So it can become difficult when, a wrestler that's in your position where you're working all the time, obviously trying to get as many reps in as possible, but it's hard to, my perspective is sometimes it's difficult to bring somebody in and expect them to then go on to be a player in Beyond Wrestling when you can see them everywhere else, every other show locally. So like when we started getting away from, let me rephrase that. When I kind of made a conscious decision to diversify the talent on the roster, where I wanted specific wrestlers to work with that were more exclusive to Beyond, you were a name that kept coming up. And then it got to a point where it's like, man, people are going to bat for this kid so much. Like, it really doesn't matter where else he's working. Like, he has already crossed that point where people are going to gravitate towards him because of his ability. With enough people in my ear, it's like, okay, now's the time. Except the timing didn't necessarily work out right away, but it ended up being perfect, even though we had to wait a little bit longer. When the time came, when you beat Thomas Santel in the Discovery Gauntlet. And something that a lot of people, I don't know whether they know or not, but it's worth mentioning is it's not like we went ahead with all 18 episodes of Uncharted Territory for the first season and said, hey, this is how all 18 weeks of the Discovery Gauntlet are going to go. I didn't think that. Santel was somebody else that Stokely went to bat for, because he said that, he just did a stint at the Performance Center. Like, how come you're not using this guy? And I didn't necessarily think that it was going to take off the way that it did. But that's where the format of Uncharted Territory becomes so valuable, where it's like we're running so many shows that we've got even more freedom, even more ability to experiment than we've ever had previously. So if somebody comes on and they flop, what's the harm? It's only one match from 1 week. We'll be back next week with something else. So Santel obviously exploded. We had started him off even as a heel. And then people chanted nerd and people chanted Ovaltine. And then it was like, at least we had the wherewithal at that point to be able to pivot to kind of, boost him as much as we could. But then we realized, like, hey, we're not going to have enough steam to get through all the way to the end of the season. Like, there needs to be light at the end of the tunnel. And that's when there were a couple names tossed around and nobody else. It's just, you were the only one. So I don't remember. I had hit you up a couple times and just kind of like, hey, like, we're going to start working together soon. Just be patient when the time is right. And then we were finally able to get the date together. And it was June 19th, 2019. Christian Casanova comes in the Discovery Gauntlet and ends the win streak of Thomas Santel.
Dude,
what was that like?
I was so ready. I was just like, you know what? This is the perfect time right now for me to come in here. And I felt like it wasn't just like it was a Discovery Gauntlet where like a lot of newer guys will get to show, what they got for the first time, and then you don't see them again. But I knew, I was like, listen, this is going to be something moving forward. I don't know what, but I know that me coming in, I have to make an impression. I have to kill it. Thankfully, like, the crowd, because I'm local, obviously, like, they knew who I was. So that helped me out humongously, because I see a lot of guys come in who they don't know. And sometimes it is a little bit harder. But I had that. And then getting into that match with Tom, he's so good. And I did learn a lot in that match. And after, like, the crowd reaction, I think I was a heel. Yeah. Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, no,
yeah,
absolutely.
I was a heel, right? Yeah. I came in as a heel.
Because Cam Sagami helped you out.
Yeah.
Because Cam had his issues with Santel for a few weeks prior.
That's how I won. I didn't even beat him. Cam beat him. But no, that was great, man. I was so pumped for that. I felt like it was my time, and the time was right.
And then you had a couple other strong opponents to work with to really help cement you. Layla Hirsch, Brooke Heller, Kobe Durst. Any thoughts those matches in particular?
Yeah, it's funny because I was Layla's first match at Beyond, and I was also Layla's first match at Limitless. And her and I have great chemistry. We always have quick matches, but like whatever we do is just like very, straight to the point. She's so easy to work with. She's so freaking cool. And then Kobe was cool. I'd like to work Kobe again. I think him and I had good chemistry. But yeah, I loved all my matches from that gauntlet.
And then Daniel Garcia comes out of
This
nowhere.
motherfucker, bro. This motherfucker. That was great. You know what? I watched it back, and it was what it needed to be. No, like, I don't feel any type of way about that. Like, I loved it, and I felt like it was the best at that time. Like, we executed it perfectly. The fans loved it, seeing their faces when he won. Like, they're like, what the fuck? They needed it,
Isn't it funny where it's like within a 4-week period, you have somebody like Thomas Santel who's been elevated, and that gets transferred to you. And then within a 4-week period of time, you can already do the favors to somebody else. I mean, that's how stars are made within professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
Were you worried going forward that maybe that was all your run was going to be and beyond?
No, I had trust in the process. I knew that it was going to be something else. I didn't know what, but I didn't take it as like, oh, I'm losing in 3 minutes, as like I'm being buried. I was like, no, I'm losing in 3 minutes as we're making Daniel Garcia now. And then where my path is going is somewhere different. Obviously, I'm not going to feud with him over the Discovery Gauntlet. That's for the newer talents that are coming in. But I was just excited for anything at that point. It was just whatever you needed me to do, I was just going to go out and kill it.
Of course, so again, the entire first season of Uncharted Territory, the second season as well, available at iwtv.live, independentwrestling.tv. Sign up using promo code BEYOND, get a free trial. Get to watch all of those great matches that we just talked about. Some stuff going on with Club Cam a little bit as we were trying to build that out, bringing Holiday into the fold, bringing Ken Doan into the fold, getting through American Rana. And then we did All Hands on Deck outdoors. You've got a big first-time ever match with Alex Zane. And I think that was the point that we kind of realized, like, Christian's ready for some bigger singles matches, some singles opportunities. And what was it like working with Zane? What was it like wrestling outside?
Such a cool experience. I think, like, even watching it back, I didn't get to take it in. I wish I took it in more. Like, dude, we're on the fucking beach. But no, and Alex was so cool, and I know he had a lot of hype coming into it. So I was like, I wanted to do him right. I wanted to be a good opponent for him, make sure that we killed it and we showed off all his strengths and all my strengths. But no, he was just, I'd love to run that one back somewhere down the road.
Yeah, you guys went all in on that, and that's a match that's up for free at youtube.com/Beyond Wrestling with the whole All Hands on Deck Final Edit playlist available. You got to wrestle Dickinson singles match at
Yep.
Sodom and Gomorrah in Asbury Park.
Yeah, no, I learned a lot in that match too. He talked to me before and was just like, dude, like we don't need to. He's like, keep it simple. He's like, you don't need to do this and do that. I was like, wow, I don't. And then we went in the match, and then you think so. But he was just a great opponent. I was expecting he was gonna kill me, and we had a good, but he hits, but he's not trying to kill you if he doesn't want to. But if he did want to, then probably have a problem. Dude, I was fucking shook. Like this dude's gonna fucking kill me. He was in a good mood that day. I think you checked in with me. You were like, how is he? Is he good?
I for some reason I've just gotten in the habit of checking in with a lot of people before their matches, and maybe this is something we'll bring up in a couple minutes. But I've just gotten the habit because sometimes there's just not a natural chemistry, or sometimes there's a disagreement, and people are afraid to even to speak up. And if the promoter comes in and opens that door, it's like, hey, if there's anything that we're just like, oh, we're not sure how to get to this, or maybe the finish you asked for it to be this, but we want to do it like this. Like, it's tough because there's so many moving parts to a show. But like, I always think it's really important to keep communication open, just to minimize the amount of possible problems that there are. We'll definitely get to that because season 2 Uncharted Territory was kind of defined by your participation within Club Cam. It was very obvious that the crowd was ready to get behind you. They want to cheer you. They want to see you break away from these guys. Kind of all culminated with a match with John Silver. And, it was kind of risky for us to headline with such a long match. Unfortunately, it was one of those shows where we ended up going overtime. So you guys really had your work cut out for you. But an instant classic. What are your thoughts on that match?
I love that match. I feel like that was a match for me as far as like my breakout match. I think it has a lot to do with your opponent. A lot of times in having a breakout match, John's one of those guys where he makes you get on his level. And I think it took me like a couple minutes in the match to realize like, holy shit, this dude's on a different level. Like this guy's like 2 or 3 levels higher than I thought I was going to need to be. And then towards the end, I realized like, okay, like you got to step it up and get on his level. And I'd work with him in a tag match, but as far as like a one-on-one match, I didn't really know what to expect. I just kind of went into it like I had a lot to prove. I was the main event. I knew you were giving me an opportunity. I felt like it was make it or break it at that point. And I think those high pressure matches and those high pressure situations are the best thing for a performer to shine. So I think that's kind of how that worked out for me.
Story-wise, did you sense things were going in that direction too, as far as breaking away from Club Cam? And
yeah, I was hoping. I had no idea at that point. I was just I knew it was going one way, and then it kind of went another way at some point after that. But I knew it was going towards me eventually doing something as hopefully a baby face. Or that was the payoff. The ultimate payoff was turning on Club Cam. I just had no clue how we were actually going to get there.
I mean, and that's part of what's fun about Uncharted Territory is, we oftentimes know where we want to go, but we don't know when we want to get there or how we're going to get there. And it's a lot of fan feedback that usually helps us come to that point kind of organically. But, I want people to listen to this. Let's tackle the big controversy. You guys had a match with the Bird and the Bee, and it seemed like it kind of went in an opposite direction from what we were hoping to accomplish. The following week, you were scheduled to wrestle Orange Cassidy, and then in an unprecedented maneuver, again, going from kind of what we had planned and doing it organically, I pulled those 2 matches. I've never done that in the history of Beyond Wrestling. Did you think that was it? Did you, what were you kind of feeling at that point?
I was like, damn, I got future endeavored. I was wicked, like, what the fuck happened? I knew that we didn't do what you needed us to do. So, like, I knew that from the jump. So I was like, okay, well, we fucked up. I didn't expect that. I figured, you know what, let me just redeem myself this next week and get things back on track. I know you had mentioned it, and you were pissed, dude. For all the fans, he was pissed. Like, he didn't even want to speak to us. He didn't want to see us. He just was like, you guys didn't do what I asked. Get the fuck out of my face. Respect that. You know what I mean? Like, I do respect that. And it's business, and I'm not, I understand that. But yeah, no, I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things. It's like, well, what if it did happen? Like, would we have gotten the reaction we got when, the big payoff. We wouldn't even have had that tournament. So it's like, I believe everything does happen for a reason. So maybe that did happen, and this was all meant to be the way it was meant to be.
Well, ultimately, the reason that I wanted to have you on this second episode of Positive Contact is because I want to talk about Tournament for tomorrow, because all this week at youtube.com/Beyond Wrestling, we're putting up all of the matches and to kind of see how the story progressed. But it's one of those things that's like hindsight's 2020, where it's like, dude, if you were just getting momentum as a good guy and the fans were rallying behind you to cheer you, when you wrestle Orange Cassidy, you would have gotten snuffed out. And part of that is the execution of the match with the Bird and the Bee, where it seemed like we're going in one direction. Now we're putting out mixed signals. But the other is also, I mean, that can be attributed to my booking, where it's like, I want to reward somebody that's doing well for us with a big match, but not every scenario kind of elevates everybody the way that they need to be. So, I think that you will get your match with Orange Cassidy at some point, but, maybe it is a blessing in disguise. As far as being mad that night, I was mad. I was heated. I felt disrespected.
You're pissed.
And it was just a situation where it's like, if you want me to explain it right now, I'm not going to be able to keep my cool, and I want to be professional. Yeah. And I think that it's really cool, commendable, and respectful that you guys let me have my space, trusted the process enough, trusted me enough, had enough faith in Beyond Wrestling that it was going to come back around. And it's funny because the night that I talked to you and Holiday and Cam at Chaotic, Briggs took me aside at the end of that show and was kind of like, what do you have going on? Like, you don't really have me in any stories. You don't really have AG in anything. And I'm sure at some point I'll have AG on one of these, but it was kind of tough because we thought we had something with the Platinum Honeys, and then that kind of, AG didn't, it seemed like he wanted to do something more on his own.
Right.
Briggs to me is always a guy that's really, really tough to book because I feel like his biggest strengths are his ability to sell and draw sympathy, but he's such a big guy that it's like he either needs to wrestle bigger opponents or he needs to be put in situations where he's in over his head. So it's like, as far as the dream matches go, like, he can have an unbelievable match with Tony Deppen. Tony Deppen's positioned as a heel in Beyond Wrestling. Tony Deppen might get cheered against Josh Briggs because how do you not feel bad for Tony Deppen getting his ass kicked when he's a foot shorter and 100 pounds lighter than Josh Briggs? But that night was like, that's when I had one of those eureka moments where it's like, let's get Christian back on track. Let's get Holiday back on track. Let's get Briggs back on track. Let's get AG back on track. Who are some of the other people that have been coming and showing up and are good wrestlers too, but maybe haven't had an opportunity to get their foot in the door, where like DL Hurst came into play, CJ Cruz, Alec Price. I had actually seen the match that they had from Limitless, and I was kind of like, I didn't even know that Alec Price was a wrestler. I thought that he came with cameraman Paul, and it's just a guy that was just like hanging out. I didn't know that he was a wrestler. So then I was like, I saw that match, and I was like, wow, these guys did good. Like, this could work on Beyond Wrestling. And then the final piece of the puzzle was trying to figure out, we still want to eventually break off from Club Cam. How do we get from point A to point B, B to C, et cetera, et cetera. And so obviously Robo selflessly coming in to be able to set up so that Ken Doan could, ultimately have the match. Because at one point, too, when we were discussing the tournament, it was kind of like, well, if Christian Casanova runs through the tournament, is victorious, then we have to look forward to just a few days. What's the culmination at Heavy Lies the Crown? And was it going to be a match with Cam? Was it going to be a match with Ken Doan? Was it going to be a match against another legend from New England? And unfortunately, it's just, timing is everything. We had a show on a holiday. It wasn't feasible. So it was beneficial to get the match with Ken in there and out of the way for the rest of the narrative. And then, obviously coming out victorious tournament for tomorrow, you just proved that you're the best wrestler in New England. Now you want to prove yourself against the other best wrestlers in the country, which is where you can have a match with Tony Deppen like you did at Heavy Lies the Crown. How was the tournament experience overall for you?
I felt like it was built perfect. The match with Ken, that was such a perfect match to have to kind of do a quick little separation as far as me from the group. I think we needed that. I think when we first spoke about it, it was supposed to be Richard Holiday and me in the first round, which we ended up switching it to the last, which was perfect. I think that ended up working out perfect to tell the story. But all my opponents built. Ken was a great match. I love my match with Alec Price. That was a match, a sleeper match that I don't think people realized what to expect from it. But him and I had great chemistry. And then leading to that final match with Rich, I love that match so much. I feel like there was so much emotion in that match, natural, organic emotion. I could feel the people kind of just like, dude, this is your time. Like, take this whole fucking thing. You know, I could feel that energy that they had. And Rich was so selfless in that and helping like get me over and give me that, you know, that here's your time, bro. Like, this is for you.
And you guys stole the show on a card that had an IWTV title defense, and we were doing the simulcast with, you know, Dickinson Wrestling, the GCW champion, that was going to be both on IWTV and Fight TV. And, you know, for a 10-match, 2-hour card, for you guys to stand out and make such an impression, and I know that it's the type of match that has gotten buzz. I've seen, you know, it's happened at some other local organizations. Holiday has been up my ass to get me to post this match because he knows exactly.
Yeah.
No, but in a lot of ways, especially at this point in both of your careers, it was a career-defining match. And it's like,
Absolutely.
you can wrestle big names like Alex Zane and have unbelievable performances, but when you add that emotional component, when you have the weeks of stories kind of leading up to it, where not only do we deliver a tournament, but now it's like also the breakup from Club Cam, also, you know,
perfect,
getting the revenge. When you add all of those additional layers, and then, you know, when you have great athletes that step up to the plate and deliver, that's a home run. Those are the moments that you live for in professional wrestling. And that's going to be something that, you know, when you talk about 10 years down the line, if people are going to be watching Beyond Wrestling and getting into it, to me, that will be a classic moment that people always look back to, is like, you know, when you look at 2019 Beyond Wrestling, you've got the match with Dickinson and Sekimoto, but I think the finals of the tournament is going to be really big, which is why I'm so excited to post the matches on YouTube. Again, for anybody that doesn't want to wait for them to get posted to YouTube, all of Uncharted Territory Season 2 is available on iwtv.live. Use that promo code BEYOND. Christian, this is the worst part of the interview, because normally it would be like, you know, what's the future hold?
Dude,
everything's so uncertain. But one thing I do want to touch on is that you were set up to wrestle at For the Culture as part of the collective. How did that all come together?
I think it was just like a perfect timing thing, because I obviously was doing the whole For the Culture thing and on my own and the Culture season, and AJ just hit me up and was like, hey, we want you to be a part of it. And then the match just got announced, I think, like a week before all of this, you know, shit started happening. But yeah, like that was just something that I was looking forward to. I just needed that big WrestleMania weekend to kind of just, you know, make a name for myself. And that's how, and network. And so many guys come out of WrestleMania weekends with so much more exposure than they had before. And then doing something with GCW on top of that, you know, that was something I was looking forward to doing too.
I think the time will come when everything when all the dust settles and everything gets kind of back to normal.
Yeah.
I don't think that opportunities are going to go away. The interview I did with Dickinson yesterday, it was kind of we talked about the same thing. This is a situation where it's nobody's fault. Everybody's a victim. So, you know, assuming we all make it through it in one piece, I think that wrestling is going to be one of the first things that comes back, because people have been figuring out a way to run wrestling without any money anyway, right?
Right,
like,
yeah.
It's such a passion project for so many people that I do think that it's legitimately going to be one of the first things to come back. And I think that you'll have the same opportunities. You know, another opportunity, you're going to be wrestling Jordan Grace, and that was a pretty high-profile match for us, you know, head-to-head with WrestleMania at the Big Balls event down there. So that's something else that sucks that got taken away. But how about one more question I'm going to throw your way? You had a match with Hackman at Beyond Championship. What did you think of that whole day and the whole experience overall?
So I got fucking worked because I'm coming into it like, wow, like this is crazy. Like they're selling out. Like they're gonna become they're gonna have a championship. Drew said they were never gonna have a championship. Like, what is going on? So like up until your pre-show speech, I'm like, this is a fucking work. I'm like, what the hell? I'm thinking of all these things to do with Wheeler and everything and what we were gonna do, and then it was just like, no, guys, this is fun. Like, let's just have fun. And I remember that was like a huge weight off my shoulders. I was like, oh, that's easy. Like, yeah, you want us to have fun and do this little, do a little fun match and tell a little story, like easy. And I love my match with Wheeler. We had a very simple match, but we told the story of the USB drive. I have no idea what's on that. You got to ask Jay Clemens for that. But that was a good time though. That was like lighthearted fun. And I hate that that's like the last thing we got to do because it was so much more cool shit coming up, you know, especially with big balls, like going against WrestleMania. Like I was dying to see how that was going to play out. I felt like that was going to be like one of the biggest shows of the weekend just because of the fact that it's going against WrestleMania and you know how people, the fans are now. Like, you know,
Who's not going to, check in on the show that's going against WrestleMania, flipping the channel.
Right. So,
BCW is a lot of fun. I did put up a post in the core roster and tagged everybody on the show right from the get-go, kind of explaining the deal. So
no, I remember seeing it and thinking like, oh, okay, like this is like supposed to be like a championship type of thing, but I really didn't understand that it was like a gimmick. I guess I'm just a mark, bro. I don't know.
No, it's all good. Day of it definitely delivered. But do you know what? It's like that Melrose building. You've wrestled in there a bunch of times, right?
Yeah.
We legitimately sold just about 400 tickets, and it still looked empty. It still looked empty, and it's like capacity is only 650. How much more? And that's with all of the floor seating. That's with all of the stage seating, all of the stadium seating. So it's just like, I really wanted to jump on the opportunity to work with Evolve again. And I was just, I even said to Gabe one day, before Progress are in there, because Progress was on fire when they were in there. But a couple of years ago, I remember saying to Gabe, like, what is it going to take to pack this building out? Like, it's not going to be one wrestler or another. It's going to be a concept. And I really do think that if we were able to move forward with, like, somebody like Eric Bischoff or not Vicky Guerrero, because she was there just a couple weeks prior, and I don't think too many people went to that. But if somebody like Eric Bischoff was brought in as the general manager, I really do think that like that place would have been fully packed out. It ended up, again, like you said, everything happens for a reason. Swoggle ended up being perfect.
That was hilarious.
It's funny because obviously he was revealed to be the anonymous general manager on Raw for all that period of time.
Yep.
He was a lot more flexible and fun as far as introducing ideas and being able to get physically involved. And he's just a good guy, like overall. Like I'd rather give a payday to somebody that I already like than like pay some astronomical fee to somebody that's just there just to get paid. Not because they're down with it. But yeah, no, that's one of the things that I was looking forward to too. Is for Uncharted Season 3. I figured we get a proper match with you and Wheeler Yuta at some point. I don't want to go too much into what the future holds because hopefully it's something that we'll be back to sooner than later. But especially with American Rana this year, I mean, I could definitely see a scenario where you'd be somebody to be able to get that American Rana moment because I think last year you had a couple spots in the ladder match.
Right. Yeah.
But
I was doing the club cam still.
Right. Well, appreciate the time that you're taking.
Yeah.
Again, I just want to, I got to make sure everybody knows that this is coming courtesy of IWTV, and we really want everybody signing up using promo code Beyond. Are there any other matches that aren't included in Beyond Wrestling that some of your favorite matches maybe? Perfect thing to plug. The first match with Myron Reed from Limitless. I know that that's on IWTV. That was a match where it's like sometimes I go to shows just to kind of I like to watch, but I like to bullshit too. I like to talk to the fans, I like to talk to the other wrestlers because I'm so stressed out at my own shows. And that was a match that I was glued to. I was just like, damn, these guys are going in. Tell me about that match with Myron Reed at Limitless so we can get people watching on IWTV.
Yeah, that was the second match of the show, and I remember I told Myron, I was like, look, we're second, bro. Like, like they're going to see so much more shit. Like, let's just give them a little so that way next time if we get it again, we'll give them even more. So we really didn't even give them everything. I know. It sounds kind of like shitty to say.
Respectfully disagree, but
we gave them a lot, but him and I both were like, we can do more. And that's when we got the opportunity to do it again. And I plan on doing it again with Myron. Him and I clicked, man. And it was a friendly competition. You know what I mean? As far as two athletic guys, young guys just trying to go at it. Both of us like hungry, and we were working together and against each other at the same time. If that makes sense. It's like who can outdo each other. One of my favorite people to work with, Myron. And also another match I had with Richard Holiday at Northeast Wrestling. They also have a YouTube, if you don't mind, if I'm just going to do a quick plug for them. They have a YouTube channel. Subscribe to that because they drop so many matches from the back in the day. And then all of my current live championship matches. I just had a match with Delirious and also had a match with Flip Gordon. And then I had a match with Richard Holiday. Those are three of the matches you can go on and check those out. I think those are all good matches.
Of course, man. Any final plugs you want to get in? Again, who knows how long hopefully not more than a few months, but
Yeah.
how can your fans support you? You said get a hold of you. Kill
Yeah.
for Nova on Twitter and Instagram. What else?
And Instagram. Yeah, I mean, just support all the boys. Just support independent pro wrestling. Just keep watching what we're doing and just stay tuned to everything that's going on. At this point, it's so uncertain. There's really no telling. Oh, you're gonna see me here. You're gonna see me there. But at this point, just stay with us, and just stay a part of the process because you're doing a great job at just making sure like fans are still engaged and still have something to go to because I know a lot of people right now and fans included and wrestlers look to wrestling as an escape. So it's so cool that there's so much wrestling right now for everyone really, and the boys. We watch wrestling all the time too, just to kind of keep our minds fresh. But this is a perfect time for everybody to get their shit together and just get their mind right, get their body right. Just real focused. Speaking for myself, I haven't had time off from wrestling since I started. More than 2 weekends off, I don't think I've ever had. So I think this is like a really good time to just like, just get everything together and just get a good game plan for when it's time to come back. But yeah, just support the boys and support independent pro wrestling.
Perfect, man. When you come back, the industry is going to be ready for you. You're going to be a star. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Drew.
Cool, man. Thank you for taking the time. Positive Contact #2. Appreciate it, man. Be good.
Sick. Hell yeah. You too. Thank you.